Okay, here we are. Wow, it's been a while since I've been on. I've got to speak loudly because my computer is playing up pretty badly with the microphone. But apologies for any audio difficulties we're having. We have had difficulties with our weather in the UK, which has been a blessing in disguise, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people have had days off, unexpected days off. And in terms of weather, this is by no means a global event. But in terms of snow, which we've had in the UK, which we very, very seldom get, particularly down here in sunny Devon. But it has actually, in terms of global weather, then it's not a Canada or a Norway experience we've been here. We're just, unfortunately, we can't cope very well in this kind of situation. So we all have to have a day off, and in my situation, a day off and a day in, and several days, in fact, which was quite lucky for me. But and that's what I wanted to talk about on this particular short video was the again, I'm really big on transformation. I'm really big on change, and I think what happens is when you get these unexpected opportunities to have a day off or have a day in, then I think it's really wise to spend that time having a look at where you are internally. And what happens, I think, with any kind of change, this sometimes some fear comes up, and I looked at that this last couple of days, and what I appreciated more was what happens is you can watch all the you can go to all the seminars you want, you can watch all the inspirational talks, you can read all the books, you can follow all the particular authors or speakers that you want, and you can get super inspired, and you can go home and you can gather all that information together, and the following day or the following week you're back to square one, and there is a kind of a feeling of dread while you're going through that short time from inspiration to back where you were. So I looked at what that was, and I figured out that it seems to me to be that what happens is there is a feeling of dread just after the point of inspiration, this peak moment where you think, yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow this particular protocol. I'm going to follow this particular guy who's talking about change. I'm going to use this information. We get to that peak point, and then there's this feeling, this anxiety creeps in. And what it is this is your old story leaving. It's kind of like a bereavement almost. It takes away your old personality and it's leaving quite a raw space behind. And this unfamiliar space that you're dealing with during that period of change, or as Joe Dispenza says, stepping into the river of change is going to be a little bit chilly on the toes to begin with, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. But it's your signal, that anxiety feeling just after the point of peak inspiration is the signal that the old story is leaving, and it needs to be replaced, and it needs to be tended to with these inspirational models that you've got built up in your mind about what you want to do. And so I suppose awareness of that is important in terms of your healing or in terms of your change. You've got to notice that there's going to be this little dip. That dip is key, and it's important that you know what it is. And it's not about the fact that you can't do it. It's not about the fact that it's not going to happen for you or you're going to in some way fail in the future, because that's old story. So that old story is leaving. It's going to leave a space for growth. It's going to leave a space behind for creativity. And your inspiration is the thing that's going to fill it back up or even have it overflowing. And a point on inspiration, I think, also is that people tend to, particularly your friends, your family, your colleagues, perhaps, they might try to neutralize your inspiration a little bit. They may try to, unfortunately, uh, dissuade you from going through with that particular diet, that exercise routine. And the way that they do it is they ask themselves whether they would do it or whether they'd be able to change in that way, or what their relationship to money was, or what their relationships are like, and how maybe a difficult one is too difficult to change. And of course, they unfortunately express that, and that comes across to you in a different energy, more like self doubt. And so what happens is that kind of creeps in. So you've got to be careful of that. When you're inspired, it's your inspiration, it's your feelings that are coming up, it's your ideas that you want to change parts of your life. So you've got to be careful about these external influences that we're surrounded by all the time. So it's really important for, I suppose, to have these lockdown days, these disconnects, either through meditation or through just taking some time to yourself to have a walk and have a think, and try to get in nature, perhaps somewhere where there isn't a billboard on every corner or a radio station telling you how terrible the world is. You do need these times to disconnect, really. So have a day off and have a day in. As Tony Robbins puts it, you've got to get on the island and burn all the boats, which I love, because I think ultimately that's where change comes from. It doesn't come from this headspace. It really doesn't. This is where some information comes in, and this is where all gets sort of processed. Yes, of course. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get into this heart space. We're trying to get into where the thing is trying to emerge. Michael Beckwith puts it beautifully. He says, what is trying to emerge? When you get into a meditative state, then you're coming out of your head and into your heart. I've spoken about this before. And so ultimately, if you're trying to change and you're feeling that fear of dread or that kind of anxiety around it, then that's important. But that's exciting. We've got to connect to that. We've got to engage with that. And engaging in that process is just another way of noticing the fact that you're on the way to healing. So don't worry about that, of course. Worrying is a wasted thing to do anyway. And eventually, again, I love quotes, and they just put it so beautifully. In terms of change, at the end of the day, we're either going to become the vinegar or the wine. And I hope you all become a really cracking Chardonnay. But anyway, have a look at that. Have a look at that moment where you have the inspiration and then you have that dip afterwards. That's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all right. You're on the way. Okay, as always, more content to follow. Apologies if I haven't been up here, but I've been inside, inside looking around and having a scope about and see what's what. So I'll be back very soon, and you have a good weekend.